A simple man gets a job at a construction company until one day he hears a child's screams coming from behind the company's sheds. He goes there and finds a boy locked up, but what happens next changes his life forever. John, a simple man, was sitting at the table in the small kitchen of his modest apartment. Bills piled up in the corner, and the sound of silence weighed heavier than ever. Unemployed for months, he felt the growing despair. His calloused hands from years of hard work trembled slightly as he leafed through the local newspaper, searching for any opportunity that could bring some relief. Suddenly, an advertisement caught his eye. It was a job at a construction and carpentry company. The description called for experience in construction, skills with various tools, and promised a decent salary. John felt a glimmer of hope. "This is it," he thought, feeling a knot untie in his chest. He grabbed a pencil and noted down the company's address, his eyes shining with a mix of anxiety and fear. That night, he could barely sleep, his mind swirling with thoughts of success or failure. The alarm rang before dawn, breaking the silence of the small house. John woke up startled, his heart racing. Without wasting time, he got up and went to the bathroom. He looked at himself in the mirror, splashing cold water on his face to chase away the last traces of sleep. Today was an important day, and he needed to be at his best. He chose his best clothes, though simple and worn, making sure they were spotless. As he ate his breakfast, he thought about how to present his construction experience, hoping it would be enough to land the job. As he left the house, the morning air was cold but refreshing. Each step towards the Brown Company was taken with growing confidence, each heartbeat a reminder that this could be the change he so desperately needed. Arriving at the location, John stopped in front of the Brown Construction and Carpentry Company building. He took a deep breath, adjusted his backpack on his shoulder, and entered. The reception was impeccably tidy, but an uncomfortable silence seemed to dominate the air. John walked up to the receptionist, a woman with a stern and slightly arrogant expression, and introduced himself. He was greeted by the muffled sound of typing and Olivia Williams' cold gaze, the receptionist. She barely looked up as he approached the desk. John cleared his throat, trying to hide his nervousness, and announced his arrival for the interview. Olivia, without a smile, asked him to wait. Her voice was monotone, almost robotic, which heightened his tension. While waiting, John observed the details of the room. The walls were a stark white, decorated only with a few framed certificates. The silence was broken only by the sound of Olivia's typing and the ticking of a clock on the wall. Each minute felt like an eternity. Finally, Olivia stood up, gesturing for him to follow. John walked behind her through a narrow, dimly lit corridor, feeling the weight of expectation on his shoulders. When they reached a heavy wooden door, Olivia knocked lightly and opened it, indicating that he should enter. Crossing the threshold, John faced Marcus Brown, the company owner. Marcus was a man of simple appearance too, but with an imposing presence. He was sitting behind a mahogany desk, his eyes assessing John with an almost unsettling intensity. He stood up and extended his hand, a gesture that seemed more formal than friendly. "Good morning, Mr. Brown," said John, shaking the man's hand. Marcus responded with a brief nod, inviting him to sit. The interview started stiffly, with Marcus firing quick questions about John's experience. The atmosphere was tense, but John remained steady. He took a deep breath and began to describe his career. "I've worked on various construction fronts over the years," he began, his voice firm but calm, "from small domestic repairs to large commercial projects." Marcus listened intently, his gaze serious and calculating. With his fingers intertwined on the desk, Marcus listened in silence as John spoke. "I have experience with a variety of tools," John continued, listing them mentally. "Power saws, drills, planes, and many others. I've learned to handle each one efficiently and safely." He mentioned specific jobs, like the complete renovation of an old house and the construction of a complex deck, detailing the challenges faced and how he overcame them. "I've always been known for my dedication and attention to detail," he asserted. Marcus's expression remained unchanged, but John noticed a slight glimmer of interest in his eyes. John knew he needed to highlight not only his technical skills, but also his commitment. Besides practical skills, I understand the importance of working well in a team and meeting deadlines. I am disciplined and always strive to deliver the best possible result." After what seemed like an eternity, Marcus finally relaxed a bit, nodding slowly. "Very well, Mr. John," he said. "I believe you could be a good addition to our team. We'll give you a chance." John felt a wave of relief wash over him. He thanked Marcus sincerely, aware that this was the opportunity he had been waiting for. Marcus gestured to Olivia, who quickly noted something on a notepad, ending the meeting with the same coldness it had begun. As he left the office, John couldn't help but smile a little. The anxiety had given way to hope. He knew the job would be demanding, but he was ready for the challenge. This was the first step to rebuilding his life, and for a moment he allowed himself to feel a quiet pride. In the first days of work, as he familiarized himself with the company, John couldn't help but notice some details that seemed odd to him. The gardens surrounding the building, though seemingly organized, showed clear signs of neglect. The plants were poorly cared for, with weeds growing uncontrollably, and the lawn was in desperate need of mowing. Additionally, the internal cleanliness left much to be desired. Dust accumulated in corners and corridors, contrasting sharply with the initially immaculate appearance of the reception area. One morning, while sweeping the entrance to the warehouse, John encountered Olivia Williams, the receptionist. She was inspecting the area with a critical eye. He decided to take the opportunity to ask about the situation. "It seems the gardens and cleaning don't get much attention around here," he commented, trying to sound casual. Olivia paused for a moment, staring at him with that same cold expression she had when he first arrived. "John," she began, her voice low and firm, "our priority here is absolute discretion. Every employee has well-defined responsibilities, and it is imperative that you strictly adhere to your tasks." Her response was direct, almost cutting. "It's none of your business," she said bluntly. "Just do what you were asked. Nothing more, nothing less." John felt a chill run down his spine. There was something strange about this place, something everyone seemed to avoid mentioning. He nodded silently, aware that he should proceed with caution. As Olivia walked away, he returned to his work, his mind buzzing with unanswered questions. Despite the clear recommendation, John couldn't shake the feeling that there was more going on than he could see. For now, he focused on his tasks, hoping that time would reveal the secrets hidden behind the facade of Brown's company. It was a sunny afternoon, and John was in the company's workshop working on a wooden piece that needed repairs. The rhythmic sound of the hammer hitting nails and other employees operating machinery filled the air, creating a sense of routine and normality. Suddenly, amidst the noise broken only by his work, John heard something that made him stop immediately: a child's laughter. He lifted his head, ears pricked, trying to locate the source of the sound. The laughter was as if a child was playing nearby. John frowned, puzzled. Since starting at the company, he hadn't seen any children around. The sound seemed to come from somewhere close, but when he looked around, he saw no one. Putting his tools aside, he walked outside the main workshop, his steps cautious. The laughter echoed again, this time a bit farther away. John followed the sound, moving between piles of wood and toolboxes. Each step increased his curiosity and the feeling that something was not right. He reached a more isolated area behind the workshop, where there were only a few wooden cabins and a smaller shed with dusty windows, seemingly unused by any employee. He stopped for a moment, trying to listen again, but the laughter ceased abruptly. Silence returned, leaving John with an unsettling feeling. Though he saw no one, John couldn't get the laughter out of his mind. He decided to return to his work. Something strange was happening there, and he was determined to find out what it was. The child's laughter wasn't just a figment of his imagination. There was something more, something that needed to be uncovered, and John knew he wouldn't rest until he understood the mystery behind that place. The child's laughter continued to echo in John's mind, a persistent memory he couldn't ignore. In the following days, he worked with the same dedication, but now with heightened vigilance. There was something at that company that needed to be discovered, and he was determined to get to the bottom of it. One afternoon, after finishing his main tasks, John decided to explore the more remote part of the workshop again, a rarely used and always locked area. Armed with a flashlight and a sense of urgency, he proceeded, feeling a strange mix of fear and curiosity. The interior of the shed was dark and dusty, with old boxes and tools piled up haphazardly. He walked slowly, his steps echoing in the silence, and the flashlight revealing objects forgotten over time. As he explored, something on the ground caught his attention. It looked like something had been recently buried. He kneeled and began to remove the top layer of dirt. To his surprise, he found a rusty toy car. Next to the car, a broken-armed action figure emerged from the soil as if it had been hastily hidden. John picked up the toys, his heart pounding, fear almost taking over his body. There was something deeply disturbing about the discovery. Why were those toys buried there, poorly hidden in a forgotten corner behind the shed? And whose were they? As he held the toys, the child's laughter echoed in his mind again, clearer than ever. He knew he couldn't ignore what he had found. These toys were a clue, a sign of something hidden and possibly sinister. John took a deep breath, feeling that he was just beginning to unravel the secrets that Brown's company was hiding. With trembling hands, he decided to bury them again. He stood up, more determined than ever to uncover the whole truth. The next day, restlessness wouldn't leave him alone, and he couldn't ignore the feeling that something terrible was happening at Brown's company. As he continued his work, he stayed alert to any strange sound or movement. He knew he needed to be cautious, but curiosity and a sense of justice drove him to keep investigating. In the afternoon, on a very rainy day, while working inside the shed, John heard a sound that chilled his blood. It was a scream, a child's scream of pure despair. "Help! Someone help me!" The voice echoed with urgency and fear, cutting through the afternoon silence. John dropped his tools immediately, his heart pounding wildly. He ran out into the rain, following the sound's source. He approached the shed at the back, next to what looked like an old and rarely used cabin. The door was locked, but through the dirty, dusty windows, he glimpsed a small figure moving frantically. It was a boy trapped inside. Without a second thought, John ran around the shed looking for a way in. Finding no entrance, he peered through the crack and managed to see inside. The environment was dark and stuffy, full of dust and smelling of mold. The screams continued, now louder and closer, and John finally saw the boy huddled in a corner, eyes wide with fear. "Calm down, I'm here to help you," John said, trying to sound as calm as possible. The boy, with tears streaming down his dirty face, looked at him with hope mixed with fear. "What's your name?" John asked, trying to gain the boy's trust. "Arthur," the boy replied, his voice trembling. "Please, get me out of here." John knew he needed to act quickly, but he had no tools to break in and didn't know what he was facing. So he told the boy to wait, promising to get help and return as soon as possible. John knew he needed to confront Olivia and Marcus about the situation. He was nervous, but determined to reveal what he had discovered, even though he knew he might put himself at risk. He decided to tell only part of the story first and approached Olivia, hoping she might be more receptive. He found her at reception, busy with her usual work. "Olivia, I need to talk to you. It's urgent," said John, trying to keep his voice calm. Olivia looked up, clearly irritated by the interruption. "What is it now, John? I'm busy." John took a deep breath. "I heard a boy screaming for help and the voice came from the back shed. He sounded terrified, Olivia." Olivia frowned, a mix of disbelief and impatience on her face. "You must be mistaken, John. There are no children here, and certainly no one locked in a shed. Focus on your work and stop making up stories. You are forbidden from entering any area outside the main shed. Everything else is not part of our properties. You were already warned to do only your job." Feeling his frustration grow, John decided to try Marcus. He found him in his office reviewing some documents. "Mr. Brown, I need to speak with you. It's about something very serious." Marcus looked at him over his glasses, clearly irritated by the interruption. "What is so important, John?" John repeated the story, detailing how he had heard the screams. He hoped that Marcus, as the owner of the company, would take the matter seriously. However, the response was equally disheartening. "John, this is ridiculous. There is no child locked up here. I'm sure you must be mistaken. Stay away from anything that isn't our workshop and just do your job. I don't want anyone, not even the police, coming here because you're snooping around other people's property." Marcus said with a final and authoritative tone. John left the office feeling more frustrated than ever. Neither Olivia nor Marcus were willing to even investigate, but he knew what he had seen and heard. Arthur needed help, and if they wouldn't do anything about it, he would take matters into his own hands. Giving up was not an option. John was more determined than ever to uncover the truth and protect the boy. John couldn't get Arthur out of his mind. The image of the terrified boy locked in the shed haunted his thoughts. The reaction of Olivia and Marcus only reinforced his determination. He knew something was terribly wrong and couldn't simply ignore it. Determined to uncover the truth, John began planning his own investigation. As he returned to his duties, he noticed other employees watching him, their eyes on him at every moment. Feeling the weight of the situation, he pretended that nothing had happened and continued his work. That night, after finishing his shift, he waited a few hours and returned to the shed where he had found Arthur. This time, he brought a stronger flashlight and a notebook to jot down any relevant details. With silent steps, he explored every corner, looking for clues that could explain what was happening. As he scoured the place, he found signs of recent use, small footprints in the dust, discarded food wrappers, and children's clothes hidden in a box. Each discovery confirmed his suspicions that Arthur wasn't there by accident. John began mapping the shed and its surroundings, noting possible escape routes and blind spots where he could hide. He knew he had to be careful. One wrong move could ruin everything. In the following days, John intensified his surveillance. He also began observing the routine of the employees and the Browns, trying to identify moments when the shed was unguarded. Each discovery fueled his determination. He had found a small window at the back of the shed that seemed weaker than the others and opened onto a narrow alley, a possible escape route for Arthur. He also noticed that during lunchtime, the area's surveillance was minimal, offering a perfect opportunity to act. During one of these observations, John noticed something that made his heart race. He saw Olivia and Marcus talking to an unknown man in a tone that seemed conspiratorial. They were out of sight of the other employees, and Marcus's serious expression indicated that it was not a trivial conversation. John knew he needed concrete evidence to expose the truth. He began noting the times and suspicious activities, devising a careful plan to rescue Arthur once and for all. He prepared for the worst, but was willing to risk everything to save the boy. John continued his investigation, determined to understand what was happening in the Brown Company sheds. Each day brought a new piece to the puzzle. During one of his nighttime observations, he decided to explore the shed next to the cabin where he had found Arthur more thoroughly. With careful steps, he crossed the ground separating the two buildings and found a small, unlocked side door. Upon entering, the first thing he noticed was the similarity with the shed where he worked. The same storage structures, tools, and incredibly, the same signs of neglect. As he advanced, John found documents scattered on a table in the corner of the shed. While leafing through them, he discovered that this shed also belonged to the Browns. The revelation was shocking, but made sense. The same owners, the same atmosphere of secrecy and fear. As he explored, John found more evidence that the place was used for more than just storage. There was a small locked room at the back. With some effort, he managed to break the lock. Inside, he found a collection of children's items, toys, clothes, and even a small makeshift bed. The evidence was clear. The place was being used to hide children. While examining the room, John heard voices outside. He hurried to hide behind a pile of boxes. The shed door opened, and he saw Marcus entering with two unknown men. The conversation that followed made John's blood run cold. "We need to make sure no one finds out what we're doing here. Tomorrow is the big day," Marcus said in a low but firm tone. "Our contacts in the police protect us, but we can't leave any traces." John could hardly believe what he was hearing. The Browns were not just influential businessmen, they were involved in something much more sinister, and they had powerful connections that ensured their impunity. John knew he needed concrete evidence to bring them down. He waited until Marcus and the men left before leaving his hiding place. Marcus's words echoed in his mind as he exited the shed. The Browns had influential contacts, and any misstep could ruin everything. John decided the best way to act was to gather more evidence, document everything he could, and seek external help cautiously. With his mind racing, John returned to his small apartment. He needed a detailed plan and reliable allies. He knew he couldn't face the Browns alone, but with enough evidence and the right strategy, he could expose the truth and ensure justice was served. Determined, he began planning his next steps, aware that the battle was just beginning. The next day, which was very rainy, nearing the end of his shift, John remembered Marcus saying he would do something that day, and the fear of something happening to the boy gripped John. He realized that it was the perfect opportunity to act. The heavy rain created a sound cover that would muffle any movement. With his heart racing and his mind focused, he didn't think twice. He prepared for what he knew would be a risky but necessary mission. He donned a coat and grabbed his flashlight, determined to finally rescue Arthur if he was still there. He walked quickly to the location, feeling the cold water running down his face. The storm was intense, making visibility difficult, but John knew the way well. Following his instinct, he headed directly to where he had last seen the boy. Looking closely, he saw nothing. He remembered the weak window at the back and hoped the boy was still there. With brute force and many attempts, he broke the heavy wooden window. To his relief, he found Arthur huddled in a corner, his eyes wide with fear. "Arthur?" John whispered, kneeling beside the boy. "It's me, John. I've come to get you out of here." Arthur recognized him and, with a look of pure relief, threw himself into John's arms. "Please, get me out of here," he pleaded, his voice trembling. John held the boy. "We're getting out, but we need to be quick and quiet," he said, trying to instill confidence. With Arthur secure, John made his way back through the risky path, returning through the entrance near the main shed, each step carefully calculated to avoid making noise. The heavy rain was an unexpected ally, masking any sound that might alert the Browns or their accomplices. Finally, he reached the street and, with one last look back, stepped out into the storm. He ran through the streets, his heart pounding uncontrollably. He needed to find a safe place for Arthur, far from the reach of the Browns. He remembered a couple of friends, Harry and Lily, who lived on the outskirts of town and whom he could trust. Determined, he headed towards their house, holding Arthur firmly. The rain continued to pour heavily, but John didn't care. Each step brought him closer to safety, and he knew he couldn't stop. When he finally saw Harry and Lily's house, he felt a wave of relief. He knocked on the door hard, and Harry answered, surprised to see John soaked and with a child in his arms. "John, what's going on?" Harry asked, concerned. "No time to explain now," John said, quickly stepping inside. "We need a safe place for Arthur. He's in danger." Harry and Lily, realizing the gravity of the situation, didn't hesitate. They sheltered John and Arthur, offering dry clothes. John knew there was still much to do, but for now, the most important thing was ensuring Arthur's safety. With the help of his friends, he was closer to exposing the dark secrets of the Browns and achieving justice. While Harry and Lily cared for Arthur, John explained the situation briefly. He told them about the Browns, the sheds, and how he found Arthur locked up. "They have influential contacts, and we can't trust anyone but ourselves," he concluded, feeling the weight of the past weeks on his shoulders. Harry placed a hand on John's shoulder, conveying support. "You did the right thing coming here. We'll protect him and make sure nothing bad happens to the boy." After a restless night full of discussions, John, Harry, and Lily reached a consensus. The only way to ensure Arthur's safety and expose the Browns' crimes was to go to the police. However, they knew they needed to act with extreme caution, as the Browns' influential connections could easily turn the situation against them. The next morning, they gathered in Harry and Lily's kitchen, the aroma of fresh coffee filling the air. John laid out the plan with precision. "We need concrete evidence before going to the police," he said firmly. "If we just show up with a child and vague accusations, the Browns will destroy us. They have powerful friends, and we can't risk them discovering our moves too soon." Harry nodded thoughtfully. "So, what do you suggest? How do we gather this evidence without being discovered?" John looked at Arthur, who was sitting at the table with a cup of hot milk. The boy seemed calmer, but there was still a glint of fear in his eyes. "Arthur, we can't return you to your family yet. Otherwise, everyone will be in danger. Do you know anything else about what the Browns are doing? Any specific place where they keep documents or other children?" John asked gently. Arthur thought for a moment, biting his lower lip. I remember hearing Mr. Brown talking about a secret office in the basement of his house. I think that's where he keeps important things. Lily, who had remained silent until then, spoke with determination. We need to get into that office and take any documents or evidence we can find, but how do we do that without them seeing us? John smiled, a plan starting to form in his mind. I'll infiltrate the Browns' house. I know their routine well, and I know that during the day, the house is relatively empty. If I can get in and out without being seen, we can get the evidence we need. Harry looked worried but nodded. It's risky, John, but it seems like our best chance. We'll need a plan B in case something goes wrong. Lily placed a hand on John's shoulder. We'll make sure Arthur is safe here while you do this, and if something goes wrong, we'll call the police immediately and report it anyway. We can't let them go unpunished. With the plan set, John felt a mix of anxiety and determination. He knew it was a dangerous task, but there was no other option. They were dealing with dangerous and influential people, and every step needed to be calculated. With one last look of encouragement at Arthur, John prepared for the mission that could change everything. The next day, John went to work as usual, acting as if nothing had happened. The morning passed smoothly, but in the afternoon, he noticed movements of people coming and going in the company, worried looks, and Marcus seemed impatient and terrified, looking around as if searching for something. Olivia was more tense than usual. Everyone seemed too busy even to suspect John, so he had the idea to check the shed again before invading the Browns' house. That night, under the cover of darkness, John knew it was time to act. With the plan in mind and determination in his heart, he prepared to infiltrate the shed again. He dressed in dark clothes to blend with the shadows and grabbed a small flashlight, ensuring the battery was full. He said goodbye to Harry and Lily, who promised to stay alert and protect Arthur during his absence. The walk to the shed was tense. The moon was covered by thick clouds, making the night even darker. The rain had stopped, leaving the ground wet and slippery. John moved cautiously, senses sharp, ready for any sign of danger. Upon reaching the shed, he found the side door unlocked as he had expected. He entered silently, the flashlight in one hand and a bag in the other. The interior of the shed was quiet, with only the distant sound of drips echoing through the space. John advanced, each step calculated to avoid making noise. He remembered exactly where he had found the toys. He headed to the isolated area of the shed where the toy car and action figure were poorly buried. He knelt and began to dig carefully with his hands, feeling the cold and damp soil under his fingers. After a few minutes of meticulous work, he recovered the rusty toy car and the action figure. The evidence he needed was there, dirty and worn, but undeniably important. He placed them in the bag, ensuring they were well protected. As he stood up, an unexpected sound made his heart race. Footsteps. Someone was approaching. John quickly turned off the flashlight and hid behind a pile of boxes, holding his breath. The beam of a flashlight swept across the shed, and he heard muffled voices. "Are you sure you heard something?" a male voice asked. "Yes, I think so. Let's check," a female voice replied. John recognized Olivia's voice. He knew he had to get out of there before he was discovered. He waited until the voices moved away, then, with the utmost caution, made his way towards the exit. Reaching the side door, he felt a wave of relief. He slipped out into the dark night, moving quickly across the grounds until he reached the road. The way back seemed shorter, fueled by adrenaline and the urgency to protect the evidence. When he finally arrived at Harry and Lily's house, he was greeted with expressions of relief and concern. "Did you get it?" Harry asked, his eyes fixed on the bag John carried. "Yes, here they are," John replied, showing the toy car and the action figure. "Now we have something concrete. We need to plan the next step carefully." Arthur, sitting on the sofa, looked at the toys with a mix of recognition and sadness. John knew the real challenge was yet to come, but with the evidence in hand, he felt a step closer to ensuring justice for the boy and exposing the Browns' crimes. With the recovered toys serving as initial evidence, John knew he needed more to expose the Browns fully. He decided to put the plan to infiltrate the house into action. That same night, he went to the Browns' house and noticed it was heavily guarded by security cameras and guard dogs, which would make the mission much more difficult. and put everything he had done so far at risk. He remembered an old childhood friend, Jack, who was now a police commissioner. Jack was known for his integrity and determination to seek justice. John decided to seek him out, trusting that he would never be involved in such crimes and could help devise a solid plan. The next morning, John went to meet Jack. They met in a discreet cafe on the outskirts of town, away from prying eyes. John explained the entire situation, from discovering Arthur to the Browns' influential connections and the need to act cautiously. Jack listened attentively, his expression becoming increasingly grave. "John, this is very serious. If the Browns are really involved in something so sinister, we need irrefutable evidence to bring them down. We can't risk them escaping due to lack of proof." John nodded, taking the toys out of the bag and placing them on the table. "These are the first pieces of evidence I managed to get. We need more, and I need your help to ensure everything is done the right way." Jack studied the toys for a moment, then looked at John with determination. "We'll do this, but we need a meticulous plan. First, we need to ensure Arthur's and your safety. Then, we'll gather more evidence and document everything." Back at Harry and Lily's house, Jack gathered the group in the living room. "First, we'll install hidden cameras in the sheds and consider the possibility of entering the Browns' house. We need to record any suspicious activity. John, you'll continue with your discreet investigation, but now you'll have my support and that of a few trusted officers." Lily suggested a crucial point. "What if we could get a confession from them? Something that could be used as direct evidence?" Jack agreed. "Good idea. We'll use hidden recording devices. John, you could try to get information directly from Marcus or Olivia. Anything they say could be crucial." John felt a mix of fear and determination. He knew taking such a risk was dangerous, but it was necessary. "I'll do whatever it takes. We need to end this." With the plan in motion, Jack provided the necessary equipment. His trusted officers installed discreet cameras in the sheds. The next step was to wait and document any suspicious activity, gathering additional evidence that could be used to incriminate the Browns. The next day, John returned to work at the company with renewed determination. While performing his daily tasks, he kept his eyes and ears open. Every conversation he overheard, every suspicious movement, was carefully noted. He knew it was a race against time, but with Jack and his friends by his side, he felt more prepared to face the dangers ahead. Under Jack's guidance, he was equipped with a hidden microphone small enough to go unnoticed, but powerful enough to capture any incriminating conversation. That morning, seeing the perfect opportunity, John called Mr. Brown for a routine meeting to discuss work. He sat in the chair opposite Marcus's desk, watching the man attentively. "Good morning, Mr. Brown," John began, trying to keep his voice firm and casual. "We need to discuss some details about the new shed project." Marcus, always impassive, nodded. "Of course, John, what do you need?" John knew he needed to steer the conversation towards more personal matters. "I've noticed some strange movements in the old sheds. As we plan to start the new work, I don't want to overstep my boundaries, and I'd like to know if there's anything about these movements that I should be aware of, something that could impact my work." Marcus frowned but maintained his composure. "John, you know you shouldn't worry about these things. Just focus on what you've been assigned." John decided to take a bigger risk. "Olivia mentioned something about maintaining discretion. I just want to make sure I'm doing everything correctly. It seems like there's more going on here." Marcus looked at John with a scrutinizing gaze. There was a moment of tense silence before he finally spoke, his voice low and controlled. "John, some things are better left unquestioned. Our business is complex, and we have contacts who prefer to stay under the radar." The hidden microphone captured every word. John needed more, something more explicit. "I understand, Mr. Brown, but sometimes it's hard not to notice certain things, like the issue of the children in the sheds." Marcus's eyes widened, clearly surprised but irritated. "You're treading on dangerous ground, John. What do you know about that? It's best for everyone if you don't ask unnecessary questions. The children are none of your concern. We have protections in place and we don't want interference. If you say anything more about this, I swear there will be consequences. And if anyone asks, you didn't see anything." John felt a chill run down his spine. He knew he was close to getting what he needed. "I understand, sir. I just want to make sure everything is in order. Your contacts in the police protect us, don't they? Just so I can work in peace without fear of this affecting me. I don't want to lose my job." Marcus gave a half smile, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Exactly, John. Our contacts ensure everything runs smoothly. As long as you do your job and stay out of matters that don't concern you, everything will be fine." John nodded, feeling his heart race. He had done it. Marcus's words were incriminating enough to start a deeper investigation. He finished the meeting with a pretext and left the office, his mind buzzing with what he had just obtained. Back at Harry and Lily's house, John found Jack waiting anxiously. "Did you get anything?" asked the commissioner, his eyes full of expectation. John handed over the recording device. "Yes, I think this will help us. Marcus confessed about the children and their contacts in the police. Now we have what we need to act." Jack listened to the recordings, his expression growing darker with each word. "This is more than enough to start. Let's plan to expose everything and ensure these monsters pay for their crimes." With the recorded confessions, Jack and his team set up an operation to dismantle the Browns' criminal network. The plan was meticulously crafted to ensure every step was executed to catch everyone involved by surprise. The raid would occur simultaneously at the company and the Browns' house, ensuring no one could escape. On the morning of the operation, John, Harry, Lily and Arthur waited anxiously at Harry's house while Jack led the police team. The police cars were strategically positioned around the locations, awaiting the order to move in. When the signal was given, the police advanced. At the company, officers stormed the sheds and offices, arresting anyone who tried to resist. Marcus was in a meeting when the door was kicked open. He attempted to flee, but was quickly subdued. Olivia, who was at the reception, was caught off guard and detained before she could alert anyone. Simultaneously, at the Browns' house, another police team raided the residence. They searched every room, finding incriminating evidence everywhere. In the basement, they discovered a secret room filled with documents, photographs and records detailing the family's illegal activities. There were also evidence of other children who had been there, confirming John's suspicions. Every member of the Brown family was arrested, including accomplices John hadn't known existed. The operation was swift and efficient, ensuring no one had the chance to destroy evidence or escape. The police collected boxes of documents and items that would be crucial for the case. Meanwhile, John and the others received constant updates from Jack. When the news came that everyone had been captured and the evidence was overwhelming, the feeling of relief and triumph was indescribable. Arthur, who had been quiet and apprehensive, finally relaxed, knowing those responsible for his suffering were behind bars. Jack returned to Harry and Lily's house to share the operation's details. "It was a total success," he said, a satisfied smile on his face. "We have more than enough evidence to ensure the Browns and their accomplices spend a long time in prison. You were incredible. Without John's courage and everyone's help, this wouldn't have been possible." John felt a wave of emotion. Everything they had gone through, all the sleepless nights, the risky investigations, and moments of despair had finally paid off. "This is just the beginning," he said, looking at Arthur and then at his friends. "Now we can start rebuilding lives and ensuring other children are safe." The operation marked the end of the Browns' reign of terror and the beginning of a new chapter of hope and justice. John, who had started as a simple worker desperate for a job, became an unlikely hero, proving that courage and determination can truly change the world. With the Browns finally behind bars, John and the police team prioritized reuniting Arthur with his real family. The records found at the Browns' house included detailed information about the children, making it easier to locate Arthur's parents. The authorities quickly found the boy's family, who had spent anguished months without news of their son. The reunion was set for a sunny day, a perfect contrast to the dark weeks everyone had faced. John, Harry, Lily and Jack accompanied Arthur to the meeting spot, a peaceful park outside the city. The boy was visibly nervous, his large eyes apprehensive as he held John's hand tightly. From a distance, they saw a couple approaching quickly. The woman's eyes were filled with tears, and the man had a look of hope mixed with fear. As they got closer, Arthur let go of John's hand and ran toward them. "Mum, Dad!" Arthur shouted, his steps quick and determined. The mother fell to her knees, embracing her son with a grip that seemed never to want to let go. The father knelt beside them, enveloping both in a protective hug, Tears of relief and happiness were evident on their faces. John watched the scene, feeling deep satisfaction. All the effort, every risk he had taken was worth it in that moment. Jack, beside him, patted John on the shoulder. "You did something incredible, John. You gave this boy a second chance." Arthur, still hugging his parents, looked back and ran to John. "Thank you, John," he said, his voice trembling. "You saved me." John crouched to the boy's level. "Arthur, you're a very brave boy. I'm glad you're back with your family. Be strong and happy, and never forget that you have many friends here." The reunion was a moment of pure emotion, proof of the impact that the courage and determination of a few people can have on others' lives. As John watched Arthur with his family, he felt he had found a new purpose. He knew this battle was won, but many others were yet to be fought. And with friends like Harry, Lily, and Jack by his side, he was ready to face any challenge the future might bring. For Arthur and his family, it was the beginning of a new life, full of hope and love. For John, it was a confirmation that he could make a difference one day at a time. And so, they left the park with the feeling that, despite the hardships, justice and goodness had prevailed. The experience of rescuing Arthur and dismantling the Browns' operation had a profound impact on everyone involved, especially Lily. With a generous heart and immense empathy, she felt her life had taken a new direction. Working in the office no longer seemed sufficient. She wanted to do more, help more. After weeks of reflection and discussions with Harry, Lily made an important decision. She quit her stable job and began seeking ways to work directly with rescued and orphaned children. Her goal was to provide them with the safety and love they desperately needed. Lily found an opportunity at a shelter for rescued children. The place offered not only shelter, but also psychological and educational support to help children overcome their traumas and rebuild their lives. When Lily first walked into the shelter, she was greeted by shy smiles and curious looks. She felt she was exactly where she needed to be. With her experience in organization and administration, she quickly got involved in coordinating daily activities, ensuring every child received the attention they needed. But it wasn't just the administrative work that drove her. Lily spent hours talking to the children, listening to their stories and offering advice and comfort. One afternoon, while helping a girl assemble a puzzle, Lily realized how much she had changed. The joy in the children's eyes was her greatest reward. She felt fulfilled, knowing she was making a real difference in these little lives. John, who often visited the shelter to see how things were going, was impressed with Lily's dedication. He knew his friend was exactly where she needed to be, using her talent and compassion to transform lives. "You're doing amazing work here, Lily," he said during one of his visits. "These children are lucky to have you." Lily smiled, looking at the children playing around. "They give me more than I could give them. Every smile, every little achievement makes it all worth it." Harry, always supportive, also started getting more involved at the shelter, offering art classes and workshops for the children. Together, Lily and Harry became pillars of hope and stability for the little ones, creating an environment where every child could feel safe and loved. Lily knew this was her true calling, and so every day she worked with the same dedication she had shown when helping John and Arthur. The mission to protect and care for rescued children was now the center of her life, and she was determined to continue making a difference, one smile at a time. John's journey, from a simple man seeking a job to an unlikely hero, gave him a new purpose in life. After the dramatic operation that rescued Arthur and dismantled the Browns' criminal network, John realized he had found a vocation far beyond everyday work. He felt called to do more, to use his skills and experience to protect the vulnerable and bring justice. Inspired by his experience and with Jack's support, John began closely collaborating with the authorities. His first mission was to share everything he had learned during his investigation of the Browns, providing valuable insights on identifying and combating similar networks. The police, impressed with his dedication and keen eye, invited him to become a volunteer consultant. John dove headfirst into the new role. He spent days working alongside detectives, helping track down leads and build cases against criminals exploiting children. His ability to notice small details, something he honed during his fight against the Browns, became an invaluable tool. More than that, his empathy and genuine understanding of the difficulties faced by rescued children made him a trusted and inspirational figure. One of his first major operations was dismantling a trafficking ring. With his investigations, John helped locate and save several children. Each successful rescue filled his heart with joy and gave more meaning to his new mission. The stories of these children, their recoveries, and the emotional reunions with their families were the driving force that kept him motivated. John also began visiting shelters and schools, sharing his story and teaching children and adults about warning signs and how to protect themselves. He knew that prevention was as important as intervention. His charismatic presence and sincere words touched many hearts, inspiring others to get involved and help the cause. Over time, John became a recognized and respected figure in the community. Parents and teachers saw him as a tireless advocate, while children saw him as a true hero. At community events and awareness campaigns, John was often invited to speak, using these opportunities to educate and inspire. The gratitude and admiration he received were not what motivated him, but the certainty that he was making a difference. Each smile from a rescued child, each hug from a grateful parent, reinforced the importance of his work. At home, the documents and newspaper clippings that once piled up as a burden now stood as testimonies of victories and progress. John had found his purpose, and with it, a new way of living, a life dedicated to protecting and serving, making the world a safer place for children. It was a life he had never imagined but embraced with all his heart.